You mentioned at the end that those who need wants books, and if you put all the presentation, if you don't want to give books, they need to send their name.
Yeah, you need a pad or something.
תכף אני אציג את הדובר של היום, את האירוע. אני רק קודם אספר לכם קצת על אירועים אחרים של המועדון בעתיד הקרוב. אז קודם כל, מועדון שילובים שמח להשיק את מועדון שילוב יין, שמוביל אותו יגיל בראל, הוא מומחה יין בפני עצמו, בארץ בעולם, רופש, הוא נכנס לתחום ההשקעות ביין. אז היה לנו מפגש ראשון שבעקבותיו הוחלט להשיק את המועדון הזה. היה מפגש מאוד מיוחד למי שהיה. אז ב-11 לרביעי, שבוע הבא, אנחנו משיקים את המועדון ומתעסקים תמי, מי אנחנו עושים את זה חוץ מאשר טעימות של מה? בשילוב יין?
בשילוב יין זה איזשהו בחור שמייצג יקבים קטנים, יקבי קטנים בארץ.
האירוע הראשון, עם טעימות, נכון?
עם טעימות, בוודאי.
האירוע הראשון זה טעימות של כל מיני יקבים מיוחדים, אתה לא לך? יומיים אחרי זה מפגש של הכוורת, שזה מסגרת בשילובים שעוסק גם ביזמות, אבל גם פונה יותר לסטודנטים, אבל מי מכם שזה דברים יעניינו אותו מוזמן גם כן, בתחום של BI, non-serious ומבחירי תחום ה-BI, Business Intelligence, ועם הרצאה של עורך-דין עדי קורק לגבי עריכת הסכמי מייסדים. זה נושא המפגש הקרוב של יום אחרי זה. יש לנו שילובים מסיירים, ביקור בחברת IBM, מפגשים עם גיא דרי, שמרכזת בתוך זה התחום של GTU, נכון?
של ה-GTU.
בתוך IBM יש קבוצה שנקראת GTU, Global Technology Unit, שבעצם עוזרת לחברות ישראליות קטנות יחסית להשתמש בכל הפלטפורמה המתחרות הגדולה של IBM בעולם, ואם יש ממשק בין השניים, אז IBM בעצם, אנשי המתחרות של IBM הופכים להיות אנשי המתחרות של אותה חברה, ומוקמים אותה לצד הפתרונות של IBM. במערכת זה בארץ, זה אופרציה מאוד מאוד גדולה, יותר מאשר IBM בכל מקום אחר בעולם, ואני חושב שזה יהיה מאוד מרתק. אז הביקור ב-14, ביום חמישי הבא, נכון?
ביום חמישי בשבוע הבא.
בבוקר. אז כולכם תקבלו דיבורים על זה, אבל אלה אירועים של שבוע הבא, אז תראו שהמועדון אקטיבי. לגבי האירוע של היום, אני אציג בקצרה את ריק, או שדור, אתה רוצה להציג אותו?
בסדר,
אוקיי, ריק הוא יושב ראש ומנכ"ל של, ומייסד של חברה שנקראת קומפלקס סייל, חברת ייעוץ מאטלנטה שעוסקת בייעוץ והדרכה של מתודולוגיות ל-100,000 אנשי מכירות ב-50 מדינות, בין הלקוחות שלה גם אפל, גם סימנס, לוסטון, מנהטן אסושייטס, ADT, סאפ ועוד חברות רבות אחרות. הוא כתב רב מחקר שנקרא תקווה היא לא אסטרטגיה, מאוד מתאים לתקופתנו, והספר האחרון שלו עוסק ביצירת פרגל מנצח. לפני הקמת חברה ריק היה סמנכ"ל בכיר של דן אנד ברדסטריט, והיה גם סמנכ"ל של אחד מהאזורים שם. הוא בעל תואר MBA מאוניברסיטת צפון קרוליינה, ודובר מוכר בתחומים שלו. ואני חושב ודורי ירון הוא הנציג שלו פה בארץ, והוא עשה לנו את הקשר. ריק, the floor is yours. He asked me to tell you that please turn off your mobiles. I told him in English it sounds better. I will actually do it.
Appreciate it. Thank you very much. Thanks for the invitation. Thanks for sharing your evening with me, and share my experiences and observations with you. We talk about the meteors of change impacting the world of selling. I've been in selling all my life. I decided very early in life that's what I wanted to do. It has a great risk-reward accountability, and I knew I was always going to work twice as hard as anybody else, and I wanted something that was going to pay me back twice as good. That's enough, right? That good? Okay. So I'm also a student of sales. I can, you know, I don't know if I was any better than anybody else, but I could kind of observe what happened and combine that with all the educational background and make patterns out of pieces. And whereas other people couldn't see the patterns, I could see what was happening, and we turned those into courses and processes and raised salespeople up in their level of performance and sales effectiveness for organizations. So I know most of you are not traditional salespeople, but to some degree everybody sells, and everybody gets drawn into situations and has to persuade somebody else. So from the industrial, and we've been blessed with a couple of very successful books here. Opening out a strategy have to compete selling complex solutions to committees. And there's two things that make a sale complex. One is the benefits or solutions are not immediately apparent to the buyer. That is, they don't understand exactly how it works, what it does for me. It may be a lot of technology, software, consulting, medical equipment, airplanes, weapon systems, things like that are more strategic, bigger ticket. The other thing that makes a complex sale complex, the traditional definition of it is multiple buyers. When we moved up from selling products to solutions and strategic solutions and systems, the buyers actually changed the way that they were buying. Traditional selling is I sell one-to-one and ask for the order and handle the objection and then ask for it again and keep going like that. That's how selling started. And then in about the 70s, we started selling systems or solutions that touch multiple departments. So the buyer started evaluating vendors for these type of items with committees. And when you get a committee instead of an individual buyer, you're going to get politics because they don't all agree on what they want. And they can't agree on the priorities. And quite often they can't get it all from one vendor. So there's a spot in these types of sales where they go from gathering information and analyzing to infighting and arguing and power struggles. And I've seen people get fired, and I've seen people quit, and I've seen people hit each other, and you know, all sorts of things. Some of these things are multi-million-dollar sales, and they go on for a year, and you can lose them in a day. And it's gut-wrenching to work with salespeople, but we do coaching, and we actually work live accounts and live sales opportunities with all of our clients. Instead of just theory, we really want to apply it to how do you actually do this. And most of our clients sell in a team selling environment. You're engineers, so quite often they will have a team selling environment where one person is the account manager or salesperson, and if the product or solution is complex or broad, they'll have to bring in subject matter experts on the technology or the program or the process or whatever it is to talk to their technical people on how it actually works and what are the benefits to you and how does it compare to other things. So that's the background of what's there. And the second book was really about large account management and how to manage sales forces and a management book like that. So one of the first things I like to do with a group of people who are not traditional salespeople, in fact, a lot of people, you know, have thought, well, that's the last thing I ever want to be in was a meeting on sales. I've worked all my life not to be around salespeople. A lot of us have bad impressions of salespeople, and that's not undeserved because there are a lot of bad salespeople. And but those are salespeople that tend to want to sell you one thing, one time, and be gone. And professional business development is aimed at repeat business. The real profitability lies in second, third, and fourth piece of business because your cost of sales is lower. So to me, the test of a professional salesperson is will they buy from you the second time? Because you can do a lot of things on a one-time sale, and that's where we get the bad impression of salespeople. Too friendly, too fast, too aggressive, they overpromise, things like that. And so we get, maybe sometimes they even lie. So that's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about highly ethical, professional business development and setting the stage so that we get, we deliver and meet expectations and set the stage to get piece of business 2, 3, and 4. So let's talk about what selling isn't, right? It isn't lying. Lying's easy, selling's hard. You can lie once and move on down the road, and you don't have to worry about whether you delivered or not. That's called hit and run selling. And but real business development is I have to raise expectations high enough that we beat the competition, but not so high that we can't deliver. So it's not really manipulative or high pressure, hit and run. It's not really greed driven. Real professional salespeople are aimed at repeat business and sell trust. We sell trust in company, trust in our solutions and brand, and trust in ourselves. And when you do that, then a whole different kind of selling is possible. And you can move up from just being a salesperson to where you can solve problems beyond your product or solution and help people solve industry issues or company issues, and they'll ask you things beyond just your product, and they'll see you as an advisor and ask you questions about other things. So, and the ultimate is they say, I don't know what I need. Why don't you study my organization or my process and you tell me what I need? And that's where you really do have that relationship, and they trust you that you're not going to sell them anything that's not in their best interest. It can be collaborative. A lot of engineers get involved with their clients in co-designing customized solutions for future products that they're going to deliver to their customers that are tailored to them. So a lot of selling can be collaborative now, and that's a good way of teaming with your clients as well. And if you want to think about selling in a way that's acceptable and even worthwhile, if we think of selling as out-solving and out-serving the competition, or serving and solving, then it turns out to be worthwhile and acceptable. And most people say, I can do that. That's fine. I'm not manipulating anybody. I can serve and I can solve. And I know engineers are problem solvers, so if you're not solving problems for your customers, you're not really serving them at all. So sometimes when we sell them something, we're solving a big problem for them. And it can be competitive. A lot of selling is competitive, but it needs to be on an ethical plane. And salespeople are aggressive. They have to be. They see a lot of resistance. They see a lot of competition. But they have to keep that on a professional plane. And I think the best salespeople are belief-driven. The best salespeople are driven by the idea that I have a good solution, and if you buy our stuff, it's going to be a good fit, and you're going to thank me later for having sold it to you. Where that's not true, and I sell it to somebody and the quality's low or the service is low, salespeople lose faith. And they know they're not going to have that repeat business, and they're not going to have the buyer glad that you sold it to them or helped them buy it. And then they lose faith, and the contagious enthusiasm they have goes away, and then eventually the salesperson goes away. So everybody sells in one way or another. So everybody sells. You've got to sell your ideas, leadership. I think we've got that in there twice. You've got to convince other people inside your organization, family, country, whatever, on getting them to do what you want them to do. And today I've got leadership up there because I also do a sales management class, and I teach sales management, which I do it because universities don't do it. Universities don't teach much about selling. We actually do sales training for Harvard. They've got the best minds in marketing, and they'll talk about marketing, and they've got some of the great innovators, but they have two sales forces, one for the executive MBA program and one for the Harvard Business Review. And they are sales forces, but they couldn't get any of their own professors to train them because they want to go do research and case studies and things like that. And so we do their sales training. So, but it's a leadership function. A lot of salespeople have to lead a team, but also managers in today's world, when you're managing, the way people like to be managed has changed, as you know, as you've studied. They would rather be led than beat on the head. They'd rather have vision than rules. They want to participate. They want an alignment between their goals and the organization's goals. And they want to be involved, and they don't want to be bossed. And they're all smart, and they can all vote with their feet. So leadership is actually a sales job in many conditions, because your most talented people will always be asking you why. Why? I want you to do this. Why? It gets a little wearisome, but if you really want them to buy in and do it, you'll tell them why. Instead of, up until IBM put out those little think signs, they didn't want you to think. They wanted you to obey. And then those think signs changed everything. You mean you expect your employees to think? Yes, we do. And so the way that we manage people in today's world has changed. Just since I was in MBA school back in the early 70s, just the management techniques have become less hierarchical, less autocratic, more collaborative type of management. So it could be you need to get budget resources, convince somebody to come to work for your organization. CEO has to sell to the analysts and the investors, sell the vision to the employees so they'll stay and perform. It even gets into fundraising and politics and investment bankers who have to use our firm instead of that firm. We've got smart money, all the way down to romance and everything else. Everybody sells. All right, now, these are the trends that I've seen in selling. Up until the 70s, from the Industrial Revolution to about the 70s, sales didn't change much. It was product, price, personality. And then in the 70s, there were some things that happened in sales that changed everything. A guy named Neil Rackham for Xerox went out and was chartered to observe what made successful salespeople successful and what made the unsuccessful ones unsuccessful. The first scientific observation of salespeople. And 35,000 observations. And he came back with a very interesting finding that we were not expecting. The best salespeople weren't necessarily the best talkers. They were what? Best listeners. They were 2 ears, 1 mouth. Maybe God had something in mind. The best salespeople did discovery better than anybody else and held the product features back. They didn't jump right in and say, have I got the thing for you? They were more approach avoidance and say, well, let's talk about it. Let's see if we've got a good fit. Let's see if I can do anything for you. And let's talk about your needs and your requirements and what your vision and what you want to achieve and what would be success. And they would hold the product back. Sometimes they would leave without even showing it, and sometimes they'd walk away from the deal because they weren't going to sell you something that you didn't need. And so that was a big breakthrough, and it was the first. So that was the birth of consultative selling, and it means 2 ears, 1 mouth. The best salespeople listen first and talk second, and I highly recommend that as a management technique as well, because when you're listening, you're building a relationship, and then you can really focus your solutions and discussions on the things that you really want to focus on. Because if I'm selling for, where's the fellow from GE? Okay. If I'm selling for GE and your division, what's the name of your division? Okay. There may be 50 different reasons you'd buy from my division of GE. But in reality, you need 2 of them, you need 1, and you need 3 things over here. So now there's 6. Now I can sell one of 2 ways. I can either go and interview people and ask questions. And the best salespeople ask questions that start with who, how, what, why, when, or where. They shut up and they lean back. And they listen. And the clients will tell them what they need, what they want, how they want to be sold to, what their reaction is to what you just told them. And so that's collaborative consultative selling. And then if I actually present a solution, I'm going to focus on the 6 things you said you wanted. Or I can come in there and fire up that PowerPoint with all 50 of the reasons you might buy from GE and crank it up. And a lot of salespeople sell this way. Here it comes, feature, feature, feature. Stop me when you see something you like. And if you don't surrender, I got another PowerPoint I can show you. And buyers hate this. It's called show up and throw up, spray and pray, death by demo. And it's much better if I can do discovery and then focus on the things you want. Here's what was amazing. We started using this back in the 80s, and I was in the software business, big mainframe software solutions. And we found an interesting thing. Not only were our demos and presentations shorter, we cut them from 8 hours to 2 hours, they were better, and we were either winning or losing the deal in the discovery period. Sitting elbow to elbow with somebody, talking about the problems they face, the industry they're in, the challenges, the obstacles they're trying to overcome, and building a relationship with them and listening more than talking. So it works for teenagers too. I don't know if you know that. My son, that 6 months before they go off to college, you're lucky if you don't kill each other. And my son was pretty maintenance-free and a trouble-free child, so was my daughter. But he said something, I said, well, that's a terrible idea. You need to do it this way. Of course, I'm a control guy, and I'm going to be very prescriptive. He said, Dad, you can't talk to me like that. I said, I beg your pardon. I'm your father. He says, well, of course you can talk to me that way, but if you want to be effective, you might want to ask some questions. So I started asking questions, and it helped solve that problem, because this is when they really want to be independent, and they want to have their own opinion. So it was very helpful for me when I started to have teenagers. I quit being more prescriptive. Even when I was right, it didn't matter. They had to wrestle with it and come up with it. And same thing for consultative selling. What's the first step in behavior modification? Psychologists have found this out. What's the first thing you got to do? If you want to change people's behavior, you listen, and they've got to admit they have a problem. They've got to confess and share it with you. Because until you admit you have a pain, there's not going to be a change. So write that down. No pain, no change. If somebody doesn't admit they have an issue or a problem, they're not going to change the way they're doing. So you're trying to find out what the pain or the gain could be. It might not be a pain. All right, so all during the 80s, companies learned we need to move up from products to solutions and then to strategic solutions, because what was happening is more commodification and procurement had more power. And if we were selling low-level solutions and things, it's cheaper for some people to go make it in China or outsource the services to India. A lot of price competition. A lot of companies were getting commoditized. And they said, we can't make the margins we want to make selling these low-end solutions. We're going to have to be more creative and come up with the value-added solutions and move up to selling more solutions and strategic solutions to get better margins. And we're going to either cast off those low-end solutions to distributors, to the web, or maybe stop selling those altogether. But we get a lot of calls from CEOs and VPs of sales saying, yes, we've moved up to selling strategic solutions, but my salespeople haven't followed in their ability to sell strategic benefits to strategic buyers. They don't know how to get to executives and what to say when they get there. So we get a lot of those calls and help people start selling strategic benefits instead of tactical. Okay. Anytime you want to interrupt with a question, we can divert. Yeah, great. That was quick. Okay, good.
Two questions. First of all, you mentioned this already. How would the client know, or potential client know, what their problems are? That's the first.
Yeah.
Second, even if they do know, why would they share that with you? The situation that you described is a very fortunate situation for you to have half an hour with a potential customer to be able to listen to them. They don't have the time to tell you.
Okay, the first question was?
What do you do if they don't know what their problem is?
Yeah, okay. The best sales forces will develop some assessments and diagnostic tools. If you don't know what your problem is, you know the results are not there, and you can't identify it. I need the salesperson to help analyze my organization. So your value is, what can you tell me about my own company that we're not doing well? And in our case, we have an organizational assessment based on the second book. It's 50 best practices that great sales forces do. And we send out a survey monkey to all your employees, all your salespeople and managers, And we just ask two questions. How important is this best practice? How well do you execute? And then we take them back a report and said, okay, out of 50, there's 5 things in here that you say are important you're not doing well at. Now, what's the impact of each one, and how hard is it to solve? So we have analytical tools. Or we can assess the behavioral traits, characteristics, and skill sets of their salespeople versus their successful salespeople and build a profile against, a predictive profile against the people who are actually doing it and say, well, you have a problem. You have about 40% C players, about 40% B players, and 20% A players, and that's not good enough. So that's one way we can do it. Otherwise, yeah, you're right. A lot of times they don't. And here's another thing we found out. We would do this assessment at the C level, we would do it at the manager's level, and we do it at the sales rep level. And they'd have different opinions. CEO would say, this is very important and we're terrible at it. Sales manager say, well, yeah, it's important, but we're pretty good at it. Like coaching, right? And then the sales reps say, yeah, it's okay, important, but we're really terrible at it. Well, the person in the middle didn't tell you what the problem was because they were the problem. Or they have different opinions, like the blind man and the elephant, as to what the solution is. And then what happens is, I'll show you the spot in an evaluation where that breaks out into a power struggle where the clients really don't agree on how it's. Now, this may have sent out an RFP that looks like a consensus. It's not. It's a piece of sausage. Different people have different requirements. Different requirements have different owners. Some of them are orphans. Who put that in there? I don't know. Not me. And so, yeah. And then sometimes what they ask for is not what they need. You say, you've asked for this, but our most successful clients really approach it from a much bigger scope. Or you've asked for this, and there's something new to be done, a new process or a new technique. We suggest we can deliver what you asked for, but if you're willing to spend a little bit more, you can really get a whole different kind of solution. So that's the case. Now, why would they spend time with you? There's 2 different reasons. One is, if they call you and they've already acknowledged they have a problem and they're getting ready to shop it out, and they get to the short list of vendors that that could solve their problem, they know you've got to come in and do some discovery and talk to people. And as a salesperson, if you can't get that access, your chances of winning are very slim. It's just going to be a checklist and a price bid, and you don't need a salesperson to do that. But if they admit they have a problem and the scope is big enough, and I think your company might be able to help us, then for about 3 vendors or 2, I'm going to grant 30 minutes to an hour. Sometimes SAP, these big solutions for ERP systems, they do assessments for 2 or 3 days with all of the stakeholders, and then they come back for a week and present the solution already tailored to showing them what it looked like in there. Now, they didn't do that for everybody. In order to do that, that client had to be willing back then to spend about $5 million. They're a little different now. The economy's not quite the same, and a little harder business for them. So now, if I call you, I can't go into 20 questions. Yeah, why would I do that? I've got to sell you in about 2 minutes with some sort of engaging, provocative statement, benchmark. Like when I call a financial executive, I'll say, what do you think your biggest expense item is? And they'll say benefits or materials or transportation. I say, how about lost sales? Lost sales is actually your biggest expense item. And the reason you don't understand that is because it doesn't hit your books, it hits the other guy's books. If you had to take their market share, put it on your books and write it off, you'd be calling me. If every time a good salesperson walks out the door, you had to take a write-off for all the training and lost revenue, you'd be calling me. Your biggest expense item, I suggest, is lost sales. And it's a provocative statement. So now, in return, I need about 5 more minutes of discovery to find out how you're doing, what your needs are, and then I'm trying to get about a 15 to 30 minute conversation, and things like that. So if I'm calling you, the cadence is different. If you're calling me, we can take 30 minutes to an hour to do discovery, knowing I'm going to come back and do a better job of proposing to you. Okay. we mentioned that when they started buying with committees, things got political. And here's an interesting concept. Not all the buyers are equal. We're equal in the eyes of the law and the Lord, but not when it comes to buying things. Different people have different amounts of political power. I mean, y'all know that. The trouble is it's invisible. And if there's a committee of 6 to 8 people that are buying, some of them are going to be decision makers. Some of them are going to be influencers. Some of them are going to be a waste of time. Some people don't have respect in their own organizations, but they'll suck up all of your time, and their vote doesn't really count. They're probably not going to get a vote. You know, they're there for information gathering or whatever. There are people low down the organization can have a lot of power, expertise, performance. They were there when the company started. They know how everything operates. They have great ideas. They know the executives by first name. They're respected. Other people, there may be executives in there who have no influence. Close to retirement, performance issues, ethical issues, bad personalities, mergers and acquisitions, all sorts of things. So not all the buyers are equal. And some will suck up a lot of time and have no influence on the sale. Other people can have great leverage. If I get you on my side, you can persuade a lot of other people because of the respect you have. The down economy. In the 90s, salespeople could sell anything to anybody. And then the economy slowed down in 2000. One of my clients said, you know, the 90s showed us that in a hurricane, even turkeys can fly. Right? And now business is down, we find out who can really sell. And so procurement got more power in 2000 because in this last recession, 2008, profits are up and revenues are flat. And the unemployment rate won't go down in the United States. We keep scratching our head about more profits and the employment rate doesn't go down. One, executives are more productive. People are more productive through capital equipment or processes or changes or outsourcing. The other thing is that they found out that every dollar I save in procurement goes to the bottom line. And if I can beat you out of the price, then that goes straight to the bottom line. So they literally have saved their way into prosperity. We normally always say you have to sell your way into prosperity. They have actually saved their way. All right? So when it comes to salespeople, there's an old bumper sticker in the United States that says, some people make it happen, some watch it happen, some wonder what happened, right? And the ones that wonder what happened are the ones that lob in proposals, they wait for the answer, they don't get the business, but they don't know why. And the ones that make it happen know that they need to get involved in the customer's politics, get involved in the competition in an ethical fashion, principled way, and influence the decision-making process. Maybe we add requirements in there that help us. I can get people on the committee. I might be able to get people off the committee. But I need to know how the competition is going to try to beat us and be able to differentiate ourselves early and professionally. Or I can have a superior solution and get outsold. And that's a tragedy. When you have a superior solution, but that happens a lot of times. The assessments we see, the research that, believe it or not, sales organizations do research, and there's a company that does most of it for us. Out of opportunities on a forecast, what they're finding out is that less than 50% of forecasted sales actually close. They lose about a fourth of them to the competition and about a fourth of them to no action whatsoever. People evaluate, spend lots of time and effort, define requirements, and don't buy anything from anybody, which costs everybody lots of money. All right? So, now, there's not one kind of buyer and there's not one kind of seller. When we do account management, the first thing we teach people to do is to segment your clients into those that will partner, those that you want to grow, and those that are commodity buyers. So there's not one kind of buyer, and there's different buying models. Companies have buying processes and personalities, and there's not one kind of seller. There are people who can do business partnering. There's a lot of them in the consulting business, or people have a lot of industry knowledge, manage major accounts. Farmers are people that are getting the repetitive business. They already know who they want to buy from. We just want more seats, sites, copies, boxes. Demand creation people are the ones that can call a stranger and catch their attention and generate demand. In this economy, that's what we got a call from SAP last January, and they said, you helped us when we got to the United States learn how to come from a German company to an American hunting sales force, and we pretty well dominated the market. That was good. Now we have a different problem now. They said, we've got a bunch of salespeople that don't know how to sell when the phone doesn't ring. And they're veterans, and they're used to shooting in a buffalo herd and hitting anything. And now they don't know how to pick up a phone and call a stranger. And so we built a prospecting, demand creation type of process for them, and they loved it. Right? So now the tellers are going away. It used to be salespeople come in and tell you about the product, tell you about the company. Well, before I ever darken your door, you've probably gotten on the web and know all about our company and our solutions. So now what's my job? So Walmart sent out a letter. Well, first of all, buyers are expecting different things from salespeople today than they used to. It's no longer enough to tell me about the company and the product and take me out to lunch. Right? Walmart sent out a letter about 10 years ago and said, don't send us any salespeople. We're a commodity buyer and commodity seller, and we're the best at it. Don't think you can come down here in your fancy car and your expense account and entertain us and add that to the price of the product. We'll tear it out before we buy from you. But there is a way you can sell it to us effectively, and we invite you to do it. Send somebody down to Bentonville, Arkansas that really knows our industry and our business or your product line. And help us solve business problems. Things like logistics, supply chain, distribution, quality issues, going into China together, going into Mexico together, co-promoting the next Disney movie, or how to beat Kmart. If you can help us solve those kinds of problems, we'll invite you in. We'll give you an office inside our office. We'll invite you to the Christmas party. So if you go to Bentonville, Arkansas, there's a ring of salespeople and vendors and consultants around Bentonville that all sell to Walmart. If you go to Atlanta, there's one around Home Depot. If you go to Charlotte, there's one around Lowe's. Those people are full-time employees of their customer, but they're on their company's payroll. And they do have access, and they solve higher-level problems other than just placing orders or telling about the company. So it's a different way to sell. You either partner or you're out. And the tellers have gone away. All right. Comments, questions so far? Time we got? We tracking? Okay. Yes? The defense business? Yeah. Oh, yes. Selling to the government in general is a different set of rules. And they know how salespeople work, so they put up barriers and procurement barriers. There's blackout periods in there where you can't talk to certain people. On the other hand, the vendors all know that what they need is access. Oracle Federal in the United States had 6 generals and admirals on their payroll. Those people knew nothing about software or database. Their job was to help get access to the buyers in procurement so we can get access. And so you can buy that kind of access, ex-congressmen, ex-military people, things like that. But the key to profitability in government is you have to get the first piece of business, and maybe it's break even or even lose money, but you got to get inside the walls. They're risk-averse people, and once you got the hall passes and can navigate, then you're looking for a piece of business 2, 3, 4, and 5 on which you might be able to influence the specs, or the risk of you is lower because you know them and you've delivered already. Somebody else is higher, and those people are risk-averse because they're pension-driven. So you have to do account management. Account management and partnering is the key to profitability in the government and selling those organizations. If you have to go after each piece of business one at a time, you'll die. So account management, and we got an 8-step process for that, but the best companies really commit to it. You have to focus on defense. You have to get a network of people who like you and prefer you, and they're helping you win. When procurement starts helping you win piece of business 2, 3, 4, and 5, then you've done it right. But otherwise, if you're selling price product, they're really good at beating you up. All right, so, yes, sir.
Just wondering about how do you identify the roles in those committees? Because a lot of times you talk to someone, they tell you they're the decision maker, they know nothing about the decision.
Right.
And then it's practically impossible.
Roles. Roles, not rules.
Well, not the title role.
Right, right. The job.
Like I will be the one driving.
Right.
The reference checking.
All right.
I will be the one driving this thing. So a lot of people will tell you that they're responsible for something or they're influencing something and they're not.
Exactly.
Let's say they're not lying to your business. That's the way they view themselves, and it's not true.
We get a lot of misinformation as salespeople. In fact, we get lied to a lot. Not because they're mean, because sometimes they tell you what they think is true and it's not. So what role are they going to play? Will they be a decision maker? Will they pick a vendor? Will they be an influencer, a recommender? Will they be a technical user, financial buyer, gatekeeper? What kind of role are they going to play? So you have to ask multiple people. The key word here is triangulation. How are you going to make a decision? What role will each person as a stakeholder play? And you start a stakeholder analysis. But you have to ask more than one person who's going to play what role, or else you're going to get their opinion. So it's in whose opinion. And once I get 2 or 3 people that say this person is, you're not going to get the business without them, they're a key decision maker, then you can start to depend on that. But you triangulate and you have to ask multiple people. And then how have you made decisions before? What role did they play in the past? And that will help you sort that out. But you also have to watch their actions rather than what they say. Because they may say I'm a decision maker, but in reality, they're not doing anything to help you. So, yeah, it is a hard thing to figure out. Oh, by the way, one of the problems is when they hit what we call the crucible in the evaluation process, where they can't decide who to buy from because they want different things from different vendors, they can't get it all one place, is that they don't have a decision-making process when they can't decide. One of my clients said, they don't decide how to decide till they can't decide. There's no constitution, there's no bylaws, there's no Robert's Rules of Order, there's no what to do when we can't decide, how to break a tie, and so it really gets into almost a free-for-all, even in some of the biggest evaluations that we've seen. They'll always have a weighted matrix of requirements, but they'll go back and make that fit. That almost never dictates who they buy from. And in government, the RFP is at the end of the process, not the beginning. They'll do the RFI and study who it all is. The RFP is just a legal document to document our choice and decision, things like that. By the way, the biggest complex sale in the United States was that tanker deal that just went down for Boeing. They were $35 billion to replace all of our jet tankers. The first evaluation went for Boeing, but one of the admirals was taking kickbacks, and they threw it out. The second time it went to the European company that was bidding on it, and John McCain, who's running for president, says, I don't think so. Because, by the way, when they designed the airplane, they picked the subcontractors based on which congressman districts the manufacturers are in. So the people on the decision-making committee in Congress have jobs at stake back in their thing. The Europeans did that, and Boeing did that. And then the third time by the way, the first bid, the Europeans didn't go with the specs. They bid a bigger tanker than the specs required, and that actually got them the recommendation on the second pass. And Boeing objected, said, no, that's not what you asked for. So they went the third time, and Boeing won it on the third round. $35 billion sale. Lasted 10 years. Yeah, comment? Right?
Is this valid as well?
Yes. Now, some of the political things you can do in a competitive evaluation won't work in Asia. And there is a class difference between managers and workers, not because they're born there, it's just the way it goes. If you're going to call on one, you really have to build that trust and be patient. And sometimes you have to build consensus. It's a very consensus society over there. We're used to adversarial type of discussions and combative ideas. They're consensus, so you have to be more patient and try to get everybody on board. And but once you build a partnership with them, the business really does roll forward. And not all the same. No, they're different. And but they all like equal rank meetings. If I'm going to go call on an executive, I need to take somebody in my organization of equal rank because they're very sensitive to that. All of them, I think. But it's hard to stereotype because each one of the cultures is different. Okay. Let's talk about product to solution. You got a product and benefits, and this was developed by Ted Levitt back in the 60s. He called it the extended product and first started people thinking about this. All right, there's a difference between a feature and a benefit. We learned that in Sales 101. And it's good to talk whenever you're trying to persuade somebody in terms of benefits. In other words, a feature or capability is what it does. A benefit is what's it going to do for me. And the more you can help the buyer understand what it's going to do for them from their eyes, the more effective you'll be. Same thing with employees. They want to know what's in it for me. Why should I do this other than I get a paycheck? So sell in terms of benefits instead of just features. Otherwise, they've got to figure out what it means. And 2 words will help you do that. You might take these away. So what? We can do this. Well, so what? What does that mean to me? We have this many cycle throughs, whatever it is. So what? What does that mean to me? Well, that's a huge cost savings, all right? Things like that. Then, as we expand it out, we're not only going to sell you the product, we service it and maintain it, and we'll always keep it running 99% uptime, and you don't have to worry about the maintenance. We'll do that for you as well for a fee. Integration. Who's going to make it work with the rest of our stuff? If you can do that and I don't have to, that's a big burden off of my people, and it's a one-time event that we're not particularly good at, and you do it all the time. So making it work with the rest of our organization and technology is good. Customization. Now you're into another value-added, moving from a product to a solution. Make it work for us. We're different. Then if you can actually reduce my risk with a guarantee or a warranty or local support or a replacement part down the street or a contract that means I don't pay unless certain milestones are met, that reduces my risk. And if we can collaborate to design the solution in the first place, now we're really doing, I'm getting exactly what I want because I designed it. And finally, the key to the top of this is outsourcing. Accenture goes into Caterpillar and says, we'll take all of your IT product out of your hands for $1 billion over the next 10 years and just give it to us. We have a client that goes into hospitals and takes all of the emergency room off of them because they all lose money on it. It's all a pain in the neck or wherever it hurts you. But outsourcing is the top of the line of selling solutions. That's where we take it all on, right? But the higher you get up here, the more we take off, the less you get out of being commoditized by procurement, and the more strategic you'll be to the strategic buyers. Now, procurement's always going to fight for price, and they're going to pretend they don't know what your differentiators and values are because that's what they're trained to do. They start off their conversations, I don't know. You all look alike to me, but you're more expensive. What can you do to get your price down? Well, at that point, you need to go into why we're more expensive and why the total cost of ownership over 10 years with us is actually lower, even though our price might be higher. Does that make sense? Or we can solve a strategic problem for you, such as government regulation, new product launch, something for the shareholders. We can solve a strategic problem that is emotional and politically embarrassing for a powerful executive, and they're selling a product. Now, you've sold a strategic solution to a strategic buyer, and if you're uniquely qualified to do that, That's what you live for. They're not going to negotiate you out of that. The book I talk about, Jeff Simpson of Oracle. He was selling to Boeing, and they were building the 777. You're engineers. They went from 2D CAD CAM to 3D CAD CAM, and for the first time in history designed the whole airplane on one computer. Before that, they designed different parts on different computers, brought it all into Seattle. A lot of bending, shaping, grinding to make the plane. This is scary considering how much we fly, but that's how they made airplanes before the 757. But if we can design them all on one computer, we can get the tolerances better. There's no interferences, and you didn't design a door right through my hydraulic system. It all fits when it comes together. And if we do it that way, the government says you don't have to fly it over land for 2 years. You can fly it over the ocean where the real profit is on day one if you'll design it this way. But there was a problem. It had never been done before on one computer. Jeff Simpson of Oracle figured out we have the only database that can handle that much data, because when you go from 2D CAD CAM to 3D CAD CAM, you have 8 times the data. We're the only one with the field sizes and the scalability to do this. He was not the strategic solution. He was the uniquely qualified enabling technology to enable a whole new way to design aircraft. You bet the company defeat Airbus. And he says, once we showed that we were a uniquely qualified enabling technology to build a new aircraft a new way and defeat their competition, he said we were part of the strategic team. We got invited to meetings. Price was no longer the object. They wrote me a check for $30 million, list price. He said because we had it, they needed it, we know they needed it, and they didn't negotiate it. So can you see how you enable a strategic solution and you get out of commoditization business? So if you can solve operational pains, you're going to get operational dollars and you'll get commoditized. And fine, you may have a low value. Sell this over the web. I'm speaking next week to a client of ours, Ariba, and they do auctions. Procurement says we need so many rubber stamps. They put it out on the bin, and the vendors all send in things, but you don't need a salesperson to do that. So sell commodities in a commodity fashion with a low cost of distribution. But if you can link up and solve cultural pains for executives, financial pains, political pains, and strategic pains, now you can get that value added. You can get a more satisfied customer. The deal will close faster, and so forth. Things like this. These are the kinds of things that you can, if you can solve these kinds of problems for executives, you get better value. If you find maybe you sell down here, maybe you are a commodity vendor. You can have a big account who's a commodity client, like Walmart. They'll pay you very thin margins, but they usually buy a lot of volume to make up for it. So, and they can be very transactional. But the higher you get, the better pricing you get. Okay. Let me see what I got here in the time we got left. Okay. We get a meeting with a client, and if they'll let us do some discovery, we start build alignment. The first step in sales is I have to match my volume of speech, my level of familiarity, my body language to that of the buyer. And the best salespeople do it unconsciously. Otherwise, we get off to a bad start. And if I don't relate to you, then I'm not going to give you that time to do discovery because I don't like you. Remember that suit on the book that I was wearing a blue suit on both books? That first time I wanted that suit, I saw it in a store. I said, it's beautiful, it's double-breasted, herringbone blue, business-like, got to have it, but I'm not buying it from that jerk. I didn't like the sales rep. I said, I'll leave, go have lunch, I'll come back in 2 hours and buy it. It was gone. It took me another year to find that suit and buy it. And then when the second book came out, about 5 years later, the first suit had shrunk. Maybe it was me. So I had to go to a tailor and say, this is a corporate asset. Can you duplicate it in a bigger size, please? I'm wearing my money belt, and it's all in ones. So then you build rapport, and you do that by listening and collaborating. If they start liking you, your company, and your solution, you have preference, and they'll go to bat for you, and people start jumping on your ship, and helping you sell and telling you who to call on, what to say. They want you to win. Without some sort of inside guidance like that, your chances of winning are very slim. People that like you, want you to win, to the degree the law allows, they'll tell you. Now, in government, if they pass that on to you, they could get in trouble. But and then we have to perform. The gateway to repeat business is performance on the first piece of business. Otherwise, if you sell it and you don't deliver, or it's not quality, or I raised expectations too high, I'm not a salesperson. I'm now a sales prevention person. I've inoculated my client. We had a company in Atlanta that oversold their capabilities and built an 80% market share of unhappy customers. And they went right on out of business. Right? So then you build trust, and then you get to that advisor status. Let's see what else we got here. Okay, I'll finish with this. If I want to build preference and trust, there are two ways to, can I get about 5 more minutes? Right. 2 ways to build preference for us. And that is, I either solve your business problem or we build a personal relationship. And you really want to build on both, because I'll trust you for 2 reasons. You're an expert, you got a lot of industry knowledge, you know our company, you're certified, you write papers for the trade association, you're the best brain in the business. I trust you, right? Because you're so competent and task-oriented. But I trust you because we're friends, you're good at this, but we worked together before, you know my family, you'll burn the midnight oil for me, you'll never let me down. What if competency is a tie? I'm going with my friend. If it's a high-risk thing, I'm going with a more competent person. We're going to have a beer, I'll tell you why you didn't get the business, right? It's better if you can win on both peers, right? And if you can do that, then you can really start to build those relationships. Not only do I like you and enjoy working with you, you're really delivering the goods. And then we start to build trust and things like that. Now, we talked about power is invisible. And there's been several authors, professors that start writing on this. Henry Mintzberg started writing on it, called it the virtual org chart. Bradford and Cohen wrote a book called Influence Without Authority. And that's what we're talking about. Not authority, not the titles on the door, influence. How people get people to do things they want them to do without the use of authority. And the best one is Jeffrey Pfeffer of Stanford, who wrote Managing with Power. It's how to use this in building your own career. Now, power's invisible. These are the building blocks that make it visible. Stephen Covey wrote 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Great book. He said in it, we build emotional bank accounts with each other. And this is the way you do networking. It's the way you build influence inside your own firm. You find out who in your client organization has influence so that you can get them to help sell other people, and who's got the big stroke. Because ROI alone will not kick a proposal across the CFO's desk in today's market. And going back and showing a better return on investment is not going to excite somebody to send you a contract. Because every CFO out there is looking at about 12 proposals on their desk requiring funds, and they can only invest in so many of them. Why would we invest in your machinery instead of this acquisition over here? Well, you need a powerful sponsor. ROI is the logical justification for it. But in order to get these things recommended for you and get them to go ahead and buy something, you need to connect into an emotional, political pain or gain for a politically powerful sponsor, or more than one. And these are the people that can drive it through the approval process. Now, let's make the invisible visible. We build emotional bank accounts with each other. We studied, Carl Jung, colleague of Freud, said that there's left brain and right brain, feeling and thinking. Analytical people and relationship people. It's not a black or white thing. We've always kind of felt like this was the case. Now they can do brain scans while you're doing certain activities, and they found out it's really true. People doing certain kinds of analytical work, left part of their brain lights up. So it was there the whole time. So it's personality styles. There's about 4 different personality styles. Some analytical, task-oriented, and we build preference with them in a certain way, and some are relationship-oriented, and we build preference with them a different way. Some people want to be approached by the task first, engineers, analyticals, accountants, some parts of some countries, but it's by individual. And other places, like in the south of the United States, they want to build a relationship first. They don't care to know until they know you care. And in the south, it's a stereotype, but the rule of thumb is you don't talk about business in the first 15 to 20 minutes. You talk about weather, barbecue, football, anything but business. In downtown Manhattan, you got about 30 nanoseconds to get to the point. You know, what do you want? So, relationships, we build influence this way: favors, gratitude, associations, common friends, previous work. Integrity, respect is hard currency. Loyalty, persuasion, oratory, things like that. Now, only one of these requires a bubbly personality. It's really not required to build strong business relationships that you have a charismatic personality. It's great if you do, but that's the surface, right? They want to know what's beneath the surface. The task-oriented is achievement, success, performance, expertise, ideas, solving problems, working on teams, having resources. So, these are the way we approach the task-oriented people, and these are the way we approach the relationship-oriented. It's better if you can build preference on both, all right? So we do it to recognize who has power. These are the same building blocks we use to build influence with our clients and our network. And you can actually borrow power. I don't know you, but I know you. And I know you know him. And I'm trying to get to you. But I don't know you. If I call you, you're not going to return my call. But if I call you and say, I could really use an introduction over here, what do I need you to do? I need you to leave a voicemail, an email, take me to the meeting, take me to the club, take me to lunch with that person, and that might buy me the first hour. Second hour's on me. I got to show my own value. Question is, will they invite you back? But that first hour is worth gold. That's why they built LinkedIn. The person that designed it was in my class. And he built the software, which is very successful, but it's on how to make connections in business. It's the Facebook of the business world, right? And you can find out who has secondary and third level relationship, and you can navigate your way to get to those people. So, let me finish with this story. So this company, this guy says, I've got this problem. He calls up a couple of vendors and he says, my door won't close. And he says, I need some help with that. So one salesperson goes in there and says, okay, let me look at it. And he tries it and he says, okay, there's your problem. The bolt doesn't meet up, because the real problem with this door is the hinges are crooked on this door. That's why the bolt doesn't meet. Right? So thank goodness for you, we are great vendors of hinges. They are engineered in Germany. They are fault tolerant. They are titanium ball bearings, lifetime guarantee, buzzword compliant, you know, and we're a service company. We'll install them. They're about $1,500 a piece, but we'll install them at about $1,500. So $4,500, $9,000. I can fix your door. You never have to worry about it again. All right. Another more strategic, consultative vendor comes in and says, okay, let me look at your door. Yep, sure enough, the bolt doesn't match. The hinges are crooked. But we went up and down the halls of this building. The problem with that door is not the hinges. Yeah, they're out of place. The problem with that door is the door frame's out of square. That's why it won't close. And what's more, we looked at all the doors on this building, on this floor. They're all out of square because... They're all out of square because the building's out of square. We went down in the foundation and we looked at the foundation. It's built on top of a stream. There's a fault down there. And it's slipping. Down on this end, it's sinking about an inch a year. All right? All right, what's the vision of if you do nothing? What's the cost of doing nothing? Let's create a little pain here. If you do nothing, It's going to continue to slide down on this end. The building's going to crack. You're going to have to condemn it. You may, and you're going to have to take about a $12 million write-off for this new building. And what's that going to do to your profitability for the year and your stock price, okay? That's some pain. $12 million write-offs are not cheap. Okay, what's the vision of a solution? Well, for about $500,000, we can lease it out to somebody for a warehouse, right, and turn it into something else, but it lowers the value of it, get you out of this. Or for $1 million, we can fix the slippage down there, shore it up, prop it up, keep it from cracking, and so now. It's going to cost you $1 million. Otherwise, it's $12 million. Now, who's going to get competitive advantage? The person fixing the hinge problem or the person fixing the building problem? You may actually have a better chance of getting a bigger sale than a little one. Who's going to get the deal to close on time? Oh, we can wait on the hinges. We've dealt with them for years. No urgency there. But I can't let this building crack in half, and if we wait, it could just happen overnight. Who's going to get access to top management? You think you're going to get to the CEO with a hinge problem? No. Building problem? Yeah, they got to fix that. And here's the irony. Who's going to get a more satisfied client? If you fix the door problem and they come back and the building breaks because you didn't figure out what the real problem was, you're going to have an unhappy client. But if you can solve their building problem, they're going to thank you for it. You saved them $11 million, right? Can you see by selling a strategic solution, you can get a bigger deal, a faster close, competitive advantage, and a more satisfied client in the end than solving a tactical thing. Of course, if you have to replace all the hinges in the building, that might be a pretty good sized deal too. So maybe you do it that way. Questions, comments as we wrap up? Anything else? Yeah? Good.
You can speak about it, maybe it's a whole different context, but what's with the internet companies? I mean, selling on the internet.
Right.
What do you do there?
If you're selling on the internet, then the relationship is not part of the value. Now, maybe I can do a remote demo and I don't have to travel. That's one way to do it. You can do a webinar, and to the degree that you can build a relationship over the web, you might be able to do enough to get that piece of business without ever having to travel out and see them. People are getting used to buying that way. If you're selling a commodity and it's not value added, not a premium, or even if it's a little bit, you can get in these, sell it through the web, sell it by the auction, build a good website, prospect through the web. A lot of companies are actually getting rid of their entire sales force and sell. That's a strategy. In the United States, obviously, Amazon and Dell didn't see the value, got rid of their sales force. Progressive Insurance sells entirely over the web, no sales force. Geico does the same thing in the United States. AutoNation. Now, they sell the cars over the web, but they have a sales force that goes and sells advertising to big companies to advertise on it. That's who we train for them. So yeah, that is a valid strategy. And I asked one sales president, I said, okay, you're in the lumber business. That's a commodity. Are you getting much value out of your six-figure account managers? He says, I got a really bunch of expensive donut toters. They are good relationship builders, but they're not adding any incremental value. I'm going to take it all out and sell it over the web. So the web has changed a whole lot of things, and even the sales forces that are left, the information and the ordering moves to the web, even though I may be calling on the C-suite. And in fact, configuration managers allow you to design yourself a very complex solution like a fire truck, garbage truck, switch out the colors, switch out the things, just like you do a car, and then get your price down at the bottom. And, gets the salesperson out of the thing where they weren't providing value. The web has changed a whole bunch of this. So we have to find new ways to provide value, or we, go away. Next question, last one. Anybody else? Okay, thank you very much. I've enjoyed your company. Good, thank you. Thank you. Thanks for your time.
can't name a street after you, but and not even give you a degree. But I can give you a small token.
Oh, great.
We usually do a certificate of appreciation.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
I'm honored. Thank you.